We've got an impactful call going with Jose Q, who I think that's way cooler than trying to pronounce your last name. But Jose is a digital marketer, and more important, he's the digital lead, right? He's basically the contractor, the architect. When you are a mid to big size business and you're like, I don't know where to go with social, I don't know where to go with digital, you go to Jose, and Jose helps lead you through the process. So I like to say that Jose is effectively the the digital CEO for your business when you can't afford a digital CEO for your business just yet. So Jose, what did I miss in the introduction about what you do on a daily basis or what you do kind of on a grand scale?
Oh man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, man. I love the energy here, and really, I like what you're doing. What you're telling me about going from lender to now in a place of service because of business owners. I really appreciate it, man. But I think you nailed it right on the head. In summary, that's what I do. I work with established businesses who've been in the game for a while, 10, 15, 20 years, and even before COVID, obviously it's much more impactful now with COVID, but even before COVID, they knew that there was opportunity in the digital space to increase revenue, to decrease margins, to decrease overhead, and to scale up, but they have no idea where to go. Too much fluff and too much garbage out on the internet. Anytime they search for something, then they're getting sold. So I come in to help that because I speak the language of the digital world. I'm able to take the concepts of the physical and what the established business is doing and marry the two perfectly for them. So I think you really nailed that on the head. And if we go a little granular on the day to day, I'm engaging with you CEOs, with you business owners, you high level executives to understand what's going on with the organization, what's the long term goal, who's the consumer that we're finding, and what do we have to do in the digital space in order to really tap into that.
And I know that you kind of cut your teeth and refined your chops in that world of e-commerce, and you kind of have laid out the e-commerce brand basically strategy for some big boy companies. And I don't know if you're at liberty to say who they are, but feel free to do some name dropping and some subtle brags there. But when I think of e-commerce, obviously I just think of Amazon. I don't realize that 10 minutes ago when I checked out for a pair of sandals for my wife for $75, piece of plastic that probably cost them $3 to make, like I was engaging in e-commerce. So maybe just at a very basic level, like just defining what it is that you work in, can you just define e-commerce and what that means and kind of why my perception of just Amazon might be a little bit off?
I mean, your perception is not off because that's the giant, right? That's the behemoth. If we were talking about discount retailers, we would think Walmart and no one else. We wouldn't really think Dollar General or 99-cent store. So it's understandable why you're bringing it there. E-commerce, to me, the basic definition is electronic commerce, commercial transactions being done electronically. This could be B2C, business to consumer. I'm selling sandals, sneakers. One of my corporate clients right now, Shoe Palace, nationwide retailer, about 150 doors plus. They have 2 sneaker retailers within the mother brand. So that's direct to consumer. You could also do e-commerce on a B2B level. If you're doing software sales, if you're doing wholesales of mass product that you're distributing out to retailers, if you're doing consulting services, as long as the money is being transacted digitally through a website, that's e-commerce. So e-commerce is just that. It's electronic commerce. One way I like to position it to, especially my retail corporate clients, is think of your e-commerce or your website like your concept store. It's unlike your flagship store. Your flagship store has the best of the best practices, right? Best design, best technology, best customer service, etc. Well, the concept store is things that you're testing and trying out. You might have a model of a shoe or a sandal that's never going to hit the floor. You just want to see the reaction from the consumer. You want them to play with it, etc. That's what your e-commerce is. So think of it as a concept store that helps you generate more revenue digitally for your business, whether you're going directly to consumer or you're going to another business.
And I'm keeping an eye over here on Facebook. A lot of people already tuning in to watch it. So
Cool.
Ken,
What's up,
Bill,
people?
Tracy, if you're watching it, click the little likey button, leave a comment for Jose so it gets more people knowing that they should watch the interview. But so, when we talk about e-commerce, like obviously we're coming to you in July of 2020. There's a huge pandemic. A lot of people not leaving their house either because they don't want to, they don't feel safe, they can't, the state has shut them down. Obviously, there's businesses that now need to make 100% of their revenue online in e-commerce. So can you talk a little bit about the 2020 explosion in e-commerce and why maybe that small business owner that didn't give a shit about this stuff 6 months ago really needs to be thinking about it right now?
Yeah, 100%. So yes, they definitely should, and they definitely should have. So I'll lead it with one example. In the retail space, obviously, retail shut down. So any of my clients that were in the retail side, their cash flow overnight just stopped. We were retroactively, one, how can online help facilitate and offset that loss, right? So we can keep the damn lights on. Second was, okay, what other digital technologies should we have and will we now put into place in order to keep us for the future, if in case another thing like this happens, or just to diversify the business so there's not just one source of revenue coming in. So when I'm looking at the retail space, we started doing a competitive analysis of what's going on in the space. And we found certain retailers, high-level retailers, you'll know the names, in malls and globally, they implemented one simple thing called omni-channel. Order online, pick up in store, vice versa, whatever. There's an integration between their online and their physical presence. These folks found that they were not, I mean, they were losing profit because of COVID, stores shut down. However, they weren't in the red. They were just staying afloat, which in any crisis, pandemic, whatever, survival is key because it doesn't really matter if you're making profit. Who cares? I just need to get through this storm. Once I get through the storm, then I'll be back business as usual. So looking at those and seeing, yeah, these guys that had implemented technology already beforehand, they already had this service, their curbside service went up 67%. So they started offsetting the loss of what was
I'm
going on.
very interested if we're thinking of the same retailer. Is this Best Buy?
No, finish
Okay.
line.
So
Finish line.
Best Buy, I feel super, super lucky and blessed that we're in a situation where even during this pandemic, mortgage loan officers are doing really great because interest rates dropped. All of our clients who are still working are refinancing. But I had this exact same experience, right? Like I wanted to get an outdoor speaker for the house because we have a pool and the kids have been in the pool nonstop since they can't go to school. And I bought like a $500 Sonos speaker. And Best Buy made it so easy where it was like shop online, do curbside pickup, show your little barcode, the dude in a mask and another mask and another mask and some sterilized gloves, walks the speaker out to my car. And I'm like, oh, that's $500 in revenue they would have never made because I would have gone directly to Sonos or Amazon. But because they had that omni-channel curbside pickup, they figured out that e-commerce game. And that was like almost on a dime. I don't remember Best Buy ever having curbside pickup. It was like a really awesome experience. So where else are businesses innovating around that space of e-commerce, especially right now?
So for service providers, I've seen them really adjust their services, right? How can we still service our customer digitally? Whether it's you're adding an online side of it, right? Your physical trainers, your personal trainers, whatever. Hey, we're doing it online now. Or local. I know my niece and my goddaughter are in ballet, right? So even them, hey, we're still gonna be hosting these classes virtually. So starting to leverage that out. There's I think it's really eye-opening to people because even established businesses have been around for a long, long time. I was having a conversation with the connection I have over at Shopify, and Shopify is their number one mission was to empower independent business owners to start online stores. So if you're a small business owner, go to Shopify. And refer me because I get a referral on it. But it makes the tools really, really simple for you to execute and start selling online. Well, they also have a higher tier service of it, and the higher tier services it will be like Kanye's like the Yeezy supply that's on Shopify Plus. Kylie's stuff is all on Shopify Plus. Fashion Nova is all on Shopify Plus. These are all major billion-dollar companies that are doing billions of dollars within the online space. I'm having a conversation with one of the reps there, and he's telling me that he's finding these dinosaur companies. They've been around for years. They're worth billions, never had an online presence. And now they're starting to dive into it. So there's definitely an eye-opening right now going on of, okay, this digital stuff isn't just a fad or a shiny object that I should be, chasing. It is something that I should strategically place into my business in order to help offset some of these things or open up a new revenue channel that's unlike something we had in the past.
So if you're a mid-sized business, right, and you sell some type of widget, what's the first step when you go in and maybe apply your big boy lessons from the places like Shoe Palace that you mentioned, 150 doors plus a giant online revenue source from their e-commerce. What are some big boy lessons that maybe some of the smaller guys and gals and solopreneurs can take away of like, okay, well, I'm not going to ever have like my own website and build everything online, but what are some big boy lessons that like the small guys can use?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So I'll start with what should happen first before you even dive into the digital space. Understand who you are and who your target customer is. Start there and have a really deep intimacy of who they are. If you already have a book of clients or people you've worked with in the past, you have yourself a focus group. So start smiling and dialing and having these conversations with these folks on, hey, where are you online? What are you doing online? What platforms are you using? Things like you're telling me right now, that Best Buy study, right? Start taking note of all those things, because those are the things that are coming directly from the mouth of your consumers saying, if you were going to implement something, I wish it would be like this, right? Because this is what I've gotten accustomed and used to. Once you do that upfront research, and that research can take anything from minimum to a month to about 3 months to really understand what they're saying, what they're trying to, et cetera. But also keep in mind that this research should continue for the rest of your life of your organization. Every 6 months or every year, you should be tapping in. And I would recommend that you tap into your top producing customers, the guys that are really spending a high ticket with you, right? The customer lifetime value is high. Keep engaging them, because they're going to be your case study on what you should be doing online. So that's step one. The second thing, like the big boy strategy to accept, is really it's all about convenience to the consumer, right? A lot of businesses and business owners lead with what they're comfortable doing, with what they want to do, with what they want to implement. Well, it doesn't really matter what you want. It matters what the person that's buying your widget wants. So that research, again, is going to help you start checking off these lists of, is it convenient for the customer? Is it adding value to the customer? Is it making their life easier? Is it making us sell more effectively? Those are all the things that then come after kind of the research of it. Then to get into some tactical stuff, really start looking, and what the big boys are doing is they're looking at what can digital do in all its capacities, whether it's lead generation, referral management, in updating the infrastructure internally, how my team manages each other, how they work remotely and communicate. You need to start doing that too. You need to start looking at not digital in a sense of a website and social media, but digital in a sense of tools that can help you operate your business and scale your business, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's shifting that perspective too, because it's not just a website, right? It's anything from Google Drive to Zoom to project management systems. This is all the digital world. And honestly, they're all just tools to help you meet the vision and the concept of your business.
That's really good stuff, because I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, you've got to think through, and this is why people hire people like you, because I don't think this way. You got to think through the big boy vision and strategy and how all this stuff interacts, right? Because no use developing a product or a tool or an online shop if then your team doesn't know how to execute, right? Like if they don't have the digital tools to execute. Something that I've noticed in the fitness space, like for some reason when I'm thinking about lead generation or businesses that have these crazy up and down cycles, I think about the fitness business, and I feel like the fitness business has gone from like good to great with convenience. So it's like, you used to have 24-hour fitness, and maybe Jose or Scott would walk in there, lift a few weights, run for 10 minutes on the treadmill, and that was good. But it's like, maybe you and I, well, look like you're in better shape than I am. Maybe you did. I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I was just doing some old school Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll do some bench press, and then maybe I'll run and I'll look at a pretty girl. And then like the gym experience went to a great experience with things like SoulCycle, CrossFit, hot yoga studios, where it's like, all right, now I've got a little bit more personalized instruction, and this is something I'm really into, and there's a community. And now it's gone from good to great with convenience, where it's like, well, now I can do that shit in my house because I have Peloton, or I have the mirror system, or I buy, a sauna to do hot yoga on my patio. Like, it's just crazy to me. So maybe there's an analogy for the e-commerce business where we've kind of gone from like good to great to now it's great with hyper convenience. So maybe you can talk a little bit some of the stuff, because I think you mentioned it, like you got to make it convenient to your client. How are the big boys in e-commerce doing things great and now great with convenience? Because I think that's kind of a thought process that we can apply to our own business, even if your business is still face-to-face, right? Like, I want to make the experience for my clients good to great with convenience. Maybe I'm never going to sell a product online, or I'm never going to be, Quickens, Rocket Mortgage, but how can I think through that, going from like good to great great with convenience?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So typically where I start here is I challenge the business and the business owner to really define their sales process. What is my sales process? So I'll take you, for example, as a lender. Your sales process is very high touch. People have to feel really comfortable with you. You know what you're doing. You know what you're, and that usually I would assume, and I do a lot of consulting for a real estate cousin of mine who's been in it for 10 years. And he actually drives 80 to 90% of his, actually, I think almost 100% of his referrals now coming from Instagram specifically. We ran a great campaign, did over 2,000 views, 800 comments, 300 prospects came from that one video, and kicked off his sales process from there. Anyways, I start to talk to him about what's your sales process like. Once you've identified your sales process, what are the different touch points within the sales process? Is it a high touch point, meaning they have to really get to know me to confide in me? Or is it a lower touch point where I just got to give them some product information, some benefits of what it does, hit them with the testimonial, and boom, I can close them? Once we define that, then we define, okay, well, what do we have to do then, right? So for example, for you, because it's a high touch, that's where video really comes into play, because that's the best way to go through that high touch digitally for you. They're going to see your mannerisms, your confidence, your knowledge. They're going to be able to digitally look you in the eye while you're speaking to them. So that's really, really big. On the e-commerce side of things, as you're asking the question about, convenience and what the e-commerce, I think one thing to understand is that e-commerce is about 30, 31 years old right now. It hasn't been around for that long. If you look at it as a human, it's barely a young man. Then, as we all know, young men are starting to fix their shit by 30 years old. So what's going on a lot right now is we're seeing a couple different things. One, the sophisticated nature of the website, right? Is it fast? Is it mobile friendly? The usability of the consumer, right? Are we adjusting it because most people are on an iPhone? We understand the diameters of where things are. And so, we're keeping bandwidth and everything in consideration when we're providing content and assets to go out, right? So that's one thing. Another thing too is that they're starting to the big boys look at online in a holistic way. They look at it as a three-dimensional structure. They don't look at it as it's just a website and where I post stuff and money comes in, hopefully. No, they look at it, okay, great. If this is my digital storefront, what has to happen in the back end for it to actually work efficiently? So then we've seen throughout the past, I would say 5, maybe 10 years, a lot more focus on supply chain. Okay, can we get it to the customer in time? Do we have the right customer service to meet that? And what is the overall experience, not just on the website for the consumer? So they're really trying to look at on a holistic approach. Then, to get really real with you, and this is where I always have on a business side, I love digital. On a moral side, I'm not a big fan. And that's because we're just, apes trying to figure out this new technology. And so we're going to overindulge. We're going to get influenced. It's going to be a rocky start, right? But on the business side, artificial intelligence is coming into play. And what it's doing is it's just consistently tracking user behavior on different websites. And as we know, artificial intelligence, just like a human brain, the more it learns, the more it injects, the more it can start to consciously start to connect and make not assumptions, but hypotheses, because these are data rich assumptions, right? So that's the next level of this stuff, is leveraging AI to say, okay, we have all of these, if we're talking about the physical space being, a sea, the digital space is a massive ocean. And so now we can track all of the people surfing and doing this and doing that, and we can start to aggregate and start to predict what is the type of experiences they're looking for, what's the type of products they're looking for, what makes them leave where, why are they shopping here versus there. So all of that stuff is really going to, one, empower businesses to try to give a very catered experience to an individual. But then it's also, it's a fine line, right? Because the consumer also wants to, like, hey man, I don't want you to know me that well. I just want you to have what I want, but I don't need you to predict how I'm gonna feel and what I think.
Right.
So it's a very fine line of that. But the question was, what's the e-commerce world doing in a sense of good and convenient, and then great and convenient? Those are kind of the logical steps of it. It's been a lot of trial and error, and through its maturity. And now it's really consumer first? How can we, things like the Data Protection Act in California and in Europe, right? Again, we're apes with this technology and we're trying to figure it out. Now people are coming in and they're starting to put rules and regulations on it. Could be good, it could be bad. We don't really know because it's all new and it's getting built as we go along.
Yeah, I saw this talk, and this feels like it's right in your wheelhouse. So I just want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I saw this talk on uh, predictive marketing versus prescriptive marketing. And the predictive, we've all discovered that before, right? It's like, I'm looking for a new Ford Raptor. I want to buy a big pickup truck so that like my beard matches the toughness of my car. And so, you go to the Ford website and now Ford's following you around all over the internet and advertising the banner ads and on Facebook and whatnot. I get that. But what the guy was talking about is exactly what you said with the AI and the bigger algorithm. Instead of predictive marketing, it's going to give me prescriptive marketing, meaning that like, oh, Scott's looking for a Ford and he also ordered some beard oil on Amazon. We're going to guess that he's the type of guy that wants to go to a axe throwing boot camp in Montana. So let's start shoving it down his throat that he might be the type of guy that wants to learn how to throw axes. Now, I have no interest in throwing axes, but if somebody starts dripping on me hard enough and I'm feeling tough because I got a beard and I've seen all these manly man ads, like they might get my money for some BS $2,000 weekend axe throwing. And I agree with you. That's where it starts to feel a little creepy. They're like, oh, Scott, we see you haven't tagged your wife in a photo in 60 days. Do you need a divorce attorney? It's like, right. No, she's just been busy, or she went to Mexico to visit the family. Like, get away from me. That feels creepy. Right. So is that the direction we're going and we should just accept it? Or does it really matter? I mean, maybe you have some different business feelings than personal feelings on that, but it's starting to feel a little creepy.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I mean, people are already creeped out by the first phase of it that you're talking about with cookies, right? You go into, bestbuy.com and then from there you start seeing all their ads. Well, that's a cookie. You go in, and your device that you're in, whether it's a laptop or iPhone, Android, whatever the case may be, it has an IP address. That's a unique identifier for that device. There's no other device that's going to have that unique code. So they put a cookie on it, bloop, little tracker. So wherever that device goes, so people don't understand it's not you they're tracking, it's the device they're tracking. You just so happen to be in bed with this damn device, so then it's you that they're tracking. So then they're tracking the device. That's where you start seeing, okay, well, I go on social media with my same iPhone. I go on Facebook, I see their ad. I go to a blog, I see their ad. Man, they're tracking me. No, they're tracking your device. So on a morality sake, folks, if you're really concerned about this, leave your damn phone. Turn off the phone. I turn it off completely or put it on airplane mode, because even if it's just sleeping, it's still on. And if you have an iPhone, you'll see that the Wi-Fi is always trying to connect. You have to go physically shut off the Wi-Fi, but if you just do the little swipe down and you click it off and it goes gray, but it doesn't cross it off, that's just saying, okay, I'm sleeping now, but check 20 minutes later, it's going to be back on, because Apple's trying to track where's this device going, what's the location, they're trying to grab data. So on a morality sake, if you're really concerned about it, just turn off the damn device. It's not part of us. It's not who we are. It's a tool that was given to us. I tell buddies all the time, like when I go camping and I leave my phone, oh, you're not bringing your phone with you? I was like, that's like asking a construction worker to bring their hammer on vacation. This is a tool. I don't need this, right? So on that side. On the business side of thing, that is where things are evolving too. The consumer is starting to get empowered to be able to control the data that's out there for them. That's not 100% bulletproof though, because there's so much data of you out there, it's going to be damn near difficult to scrape it all off the internet. However, companies like a Facebook, Instagram, etc., now are opening the door for me to say, hey, listen, I'm a user of your profile. I, one, want a report of all the data you have on me, and two, I want you to delete all that stuff. And they have to, by law, comply with that. Whether they'll do it in a day or in 6 months, that's a different story. But by law, you have the right to start asking for that stuff. So I see on the business side, that's 100% where it's going. I've sat in meetings where we're talking about artificial intelligence being implemented in the physical world and feeding the digital world. So now we're not just doing artificial intelligence within the website or within a digital platform. No, you're at the store level, at the events level. And through cameras, we're gathering AI data of, the people that are in here and what's their stats like. And is it men, women, brown, white, and all of this information that we can then grab and start to retarget you online. That's where business is going. Do we have to accept it? I'm a huge fan in saying that typically we don't have to accept anything we don't want to do, but the masses that's where it's going. So,
Right.
so in order to kind of help the individual consumer just sleep at night, understand that you as an individual are starting to get the right to start controlling some of this stuff, asking for some of this stuff, removing some of this data, etc. But as a masses, I doubt there's going to get to the point where we're all going to come together and overthrow and say, because it's convenient.
It is convenient. Like when Facebook knows that I'm out of cigars and it starts advertising more cigars, I'm like, oh yeah, it turns out I did need to buy a box of 20 cigars. Like that's convenient. I don't care if they know that about me. I don't have anything to hide in that realm.
Right.
You know, it's interesting though that you talked about gathering the in-store information and kind of the omni-channel of like being all things to all places. And I wish I could use the name of the store, but I think the business owner I talked about this disclosed some things that he was not allowed to do because of an NDA because they sold the company. But let's just say there's this jeans store out there that sells $500 jeans. And what he was explaining to me is that they sold out the store to a hedge fund. And he goes, what the hedge fund doesn't understand is they're running the business into the ground. And the reason being, he said, you know, when you go into an in-person, shop in Melrose to buy a $500 pair of jeans, the person selling you a $500 pair of jeans needs to be a style consultant. They need to know what they're talking about. They have to understand fit and feel and customer experience. And that's not a $12 an hour employee that used to work at the Gap. That's a $75,000 or $90,000 a year consultant, which is how this jean brand built their brand. And he said, we would lose money on every single pair of jeans that we sold in the store because of the cost of the people. But then what would end up happening is that person would enter all the data into the computer. By the time the client gets home, he knows his size, his feel, his fit, his style. He's got some follow-up recommendation. And now from the online portal for $100 cheaper than what he just bought in the store, he buys 4 or 5 more pairs of jeans. And that's where the company makes the profit. Well, when the hedge fund bought the place, they're like, why are we charging these store clerk or paying these store clerks $90,000 to sell jeans? Fire them all, bring in the girls from the Gap that used to make $12 an hour. We'll pay them $15 an hour. And now the business is failing, right? And so I think it's interesting that you brought up, like, it's going to be more and more about physical locations collecting information to then feed into the internet. So if you're a small guy, if you're a solopreneur, you mentioned your cousin getting all the Instagram leads. What data should he be collecting from his clients to turn into future sales or future opportunities? Because all of us, I talk to you, like, this is the first time we've met face to face. I'm interested in continuing this friendship. Maybe one day you need a home loan. Like, what should I tactfully be getting from Jose so that one day you can be a client of mine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing I'll preface this advice on is I always like to start lean, especially when it comes to my small local business owners, right? Because you don't have the resources that the bigger guys have. So always start lean. The very basic data point, the first step of it is just gather an email or a phone number, some way to get a hold of them that is outside of whatever platform you're interacting with them. So if it's on a physical, then great, grab an email, whatever, and say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you with this email, et cetera, and kind of start seeding that, the fact that we're going to be following up and continuing this conversation digitally. If you're already doing it digitally, like on social media, well, you want to extract them from that platform. Why? Because you don't own that platform. Instagram can come say, I mean, they did it to Alex Jones. They can come and say, hey, I don't care how many followers you have, you're off these platforms. So there goes your customer base. There goes your followers, because I want people to keep in perspective that anytime you're trying to grow a following, whether it's on a Facebook group or Instagram or email, whatever, you're really just trying to build a community of prospects. And so if Instagram comes in, shuts you down, there goes your prospect kind of book of clients. So the very first thing I would recommend is that email, text, address, some way to you need that data point to keep them. That's step one. Step two, as you engage them, if you're gathering this data in person, like the example of the jeans, you could ask more intimate questions because it's a more intimate experience, especially when you're buying $500 jeans, right? So it's a fine balance, and this comes more on like a sales skill set, right? It's a fine balance of focusing on the emotional, because that's when we buy, we buy out of emotion, and then we justify with logic. So focusing on the emotional while piggybacking the logic, so you can A, gather the data that you need, and 2, justify the purchase for them as well. And so what I would recommend, the data points you get, is anything that makes sense to your business model, right? So again, for them, it was their size, their type of style. Are they slim fit? Are they regular fit? Do they prefer khakis, or do they prefer a nice dark pantsuit? That's going to give you a better understanding of who they are and what you can recommend, right? Because if a guy comes in wearing khakis, I'm probably going to start promoting some more summer shoes to him, some brown shoes to him, something that makes more sense to that look. While if a guy comes in and says, hey, listen, I just need an all black, the darkest black, matte black suit. Okay, great. This guy's Batman. He's Bruce Wayne. Let me go ahead and feed him the stuff that makes sense to them. Here's a little bonus tip. And this is something that you can apply as a service provider. When you're engaging with folks online, not all leads are created equal, right? You're in an ocean of people. And so you're trying to fish out of this ocean. Well, you can grab a clownfish or you can grab a hammerhead shark, right? And it depends obviously on your business model, which is the one that I need for my business. I work with medium-sized corporate clients, bigger clients. So I need to know that their, employees are at minimum 100 employees and above. They have X amount of locations. They have X amount of revenue. So I use that as a pre-qualifier before I even get on the phone or engage with them. So throw out some marketing that's interesting to them, lead with some value, etc. They reach out. Hey, awesome, great. I'm so happy. I'd love to get to know you. Here's a quick little form. It's a questionnaire. It gives us a little bit more context. After that, we'll set up a call. Well, then that information is going to give me the data points that I need. What's your budget like? What are your customers saying about your product right now? What's your average rating and review? What's your customer retention rate? What's your customer lifetime value? How much percentage of your customer lifetime value are you willing to use for lead generation so we can identify your budget? All of this stuff. That's data points interesting to me. Not only for the sale, because now I understand who the people is that I'm talking to, but on the second step is if I was going to retarget them, remarket them, re-engage them, I have all the stuff that's going on with them. And then I can kind of feed that messaging back to them and make a more sophisticated guess on what's the type of service, product, or marketing material that I should be feeding them.
And, how often do you send out that pre-qualified survey and just say, hey, you know what? We're not really a model match to work together, but let me introduce you to Bill. Or, hey, I don't really think we're on the same page. Let's do a quick 5-minute consult, but I'm probably just going to give you these resources and articles to read. Like, I think business owners and people that are, self-employed, fully commissioned, they're so scared to say no to a prospect because, God, maybe I lose a sale and I got to pay my bills and I got to pay my mortgage and my rent's due. But, sometimes we make more money from saying no to the client that's going to drain all of our time versus the clients we say yes to. So how do you use, and maybe we'll end on this thought, how do you use that pre-qualifying checklist to determine like, all right, who do I work with? How much time do I invest? And like, what's really going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. One is very circumstantial, right? If your immediate need for your business right now is revenue, because you need to keep the lights on, then take on anyone you can, because that's your immediate need. You just got to survive. But if you have the ability to be a little bit more picky and choosy, which I did 2 years into my business, I got to the point where like, okay, I can adjust who I work with now. This is my whales that I try to do. But what I ended up doing as well is I ended up just structuring my business to have 3 different tiers. So I can literally catch all and be all, and I have funnels for each one of those and how those get executed. So tier 1 is strategy sessions. Hey, I know you don't have the big budget for me to come in, agency work, create content, posts, etc., really make an impact on your business, but this is something you're still interested in. So let me give you some guidance on where to go. Let me give you some insight. Let me give you some tools, etc., etc. So we do strategy sessions, and that's low ticket, right? Hey, it's not going to come too much out of your pocket. This is ideally the results that you should get out of this session. Well, those sessions right there don't necessarily warrant my time 100%. I can do the strategy sessions, or I can have a junior coach or a junior digital strategist come in and help, because the junior strategist already has the info that these guys need anyways, right? Then the second tier is a hybrid of strategy sessions with the custom plan. Well, now I'm dedicating more of my time and energy to it because I'm creating a custom plan for you and your business. And then I'm going to have strategy sessions to follow the plan to make sure that within a month or 2 months of executing, you're producing results. Right. So at that point, it's a mix of, okay, I can have members of the team help create the plan, but me and or the junior strategists have to come in and just make sure that we're communicating and conveying the plan correctly and seeing them. And then the third level is all agency work, all done for you. You come in, we go, we strategize, we have a bunch of discovery sessions and understanding, and we do customer research and voice of consumer research on the web. We do all that stuff, and then we start executing for you. So as you can see, those are the different tiers and the different levels of services. So business owners out there, like I said, it's circumstantial. If you need cash, you need cash. Go get cash. That's just the way of the world. That's just the nature of business. If you could be a little bit more selective and you still want to make sure you're capturing as many as possible, structure yourself out in a very organized way where now you're able to funnel these people based on that qualifier, right? So I get that application, I see all the data points, I look at their budget, and their budget is small, great, I can offer them a small offer. Their budget is big, great, I know exactly the mind frame I need to be in when I'm having a conversation with these folks. But you have to be, one, really structured and really disciplined and understand the different journeys in which the people are going to come with. Because if you don't, you are going to end up being in a hamster wheel of just trying to serve and please everyone. And so there has to be some upfront work to identify, okay, what is my core competency? Who do I really want to be working with? And where are other people that I can still fulfill within my organization? And it could be that you say, all right, I can have these 3 tiers, but I don't want to. So these 2 bottom tiers are gone. And from there, I've actually, so I just did this recently. I referred over a agency partner of mine who they do smaller websites, nonprofits, etc. I referred him over to someone who was looking for a nonprofit website. And it so happens that nonprofit was a smaller nonprofit. I mean, I'm working on a project right now for a nonprofit that's global, and they make a lot of money. They're a nonprofit, but it's, hundreds of millions of dollars of a project. Still a nonprofit, but this nonprofit was a little smaller, so I outsourced. I just referred them out, and then this is business, guys. So I get a referral fee on that. I get a finder's fee on that. Come on, we shouldn't do any work for free, especially if we're providing value or we're recommending them to someone who's actually going to come in and do something.
Agree.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Last thought. Give us one fun tip, tactic, strategy, platform we don't know about, tech tool. Like, what's your one go-to? Like, oh man, I've been using this for like 6 months. It's changing my life. Or some type of whatever breakthrough strategy, app, technology, website. What's something we can leave the people to go geek out on?
Yeah, man. It's funny because I try really, really hard not to go that route, because you can get distracted with shiny objects all day long.
I call it SOS. I got shiny object syndrome. Like, you wouldn't believe. I'm like, I want to try this. And then what do we do this?
Exactly.
My assistant here hates it. I've got a stack of Post-its of like all the different things I want to try and strategies and whatnot. All right. So then give us your go-to. What do you spend the most time on in your business or in your life? Like, where does your attention go?
Dope. Yeah. So I say do about a 60-40 split between, when it comes to the business side of things. 60-40 split. 60% of your time should be high level work. You should be reading Good to Great by Jim Collins. You should be reading The E-Myth Revisited. You should be reading Traction, right? These are all the high level activities that you as a business owner have to do in order to understand, hey, look at it, there you go.
Every one of those books are back there.
Exactly. So these are the things that you have to be doing in order to understand, where the hell are you going? What the hell are you building? This entrepreneur thing is solo. You're building something that's not created. So you have to learn and understand, and what's the market like, and what's competitive business like, et cetera. So 60% of your time should be in doing that and identifying what's my customer journey. If I'm going to start a strategy, don't bite off more than you can chew. If you've never been into the digital space, don't go try to run social media, build an e-commerce site, build your email list, start with affiliate and influencers and whatever, right? Don't do that. Identify who you serve, where they're at online, and then execute that one channel. And have the clear steps of, okay, step 1 is they should see my content. Step 2 is they should either like or comment my stuff. Step 3 is me engage those people who have done that and take them to the direct message. Step 4 from there is to set up a discovery call. Step 5 from there is to set up a in-depth call. Step 6 from there is to present the proposal. Step 7 is onboarding. Step 8 is project management. Have that outlined, execute that for 90 days, disciplined on it, make tweaks as you go along, adjust your messaging, adjust your creative, adjust your audience that you're targeting, all that good stuff, and give it time to flourish. Within 90 days, see if it worked or if it didn't work. If it didn't work, try to understand why. Was the content not speaking to the right people? Were we getting engagement, but we were lagging on reaching out to them in the message? When we got them in the message, did we drop the ball and not be able to schedule something? When they scheduled something, was our sales script off that they couldn't close? What are the different touch points within this journey, and where do I adjust? Give it anywhere from 90 to 120 days to see what the results of it. It's also going to allow you to hyper focus, because now you're not going to be trying to learn every strategy in the book. You're only going to want to learn that one strategy. Once that starts to produce results, figure out how to optimize it. Is it bringing someone in to help manage that? Is it add more ad budget to increase results? Or is it's working great? Let's add a different channel now, or let's add a channel that's connected to it. So maybe from that social media campaign strategy, we're going to add email marketing to that. So once we have them in the DM and we get the email, now we're going to put them in a certain list. And this is people coming from social media. And we're going to be sending this type of messaging to them, right? Now you're starting to expand and build. The online world is a three-dimensional structure. Don't come in thinking you have to, I mean, I guess understand if, let's say you wanted to create a barbershop and you wanted it best in class, you're going to come out of pocket a lot for that if it's your first shop that you're opening. So again, if you're going to do it in the online space, you're going to come out a lot pocket for it. But if you keep it lean, one strategy at a time, produce some results, then you're in the money. Don't overcomplicate this stuff. I was listening to a podcast interview, Tim Ferriss and Ramit, forgot his last name. He was talking about this stuff. He owns a financial agency, does really well for himself. He uses Google Drive for all his processes, and they're very simple. He has a travel process. Oh, Ramit is going to be gone from the 1st to the 15th. He's traveling for business. Hey, assistant, go into the travel folder and look at all the things that need to be done while I'm gone. And it's all laid out, and it has hyperlinks, and it's boom, boom, boom. Very simple, though. It's not a project management tool. It's not Salesforce. It's not a CRM. It's not automation. It's a cloud-based Microsoft type of document that has bullet points of what you need to do, so you're not missing anything and you're staying on track. So that's that. And the second thing I would say is this stuff takes discipline. Just like any other sales process, I'm sure you're familiar. If your first 1 to 2 years in the lending game, you could have quit 6 months and said, man, this ain't going to work. It's like, yeah, but you're refining your messaging. You don't even know who your customer base is right now. So understand that this is going to be the same thing in the online space. However, it can happen faster because you have a bigger pool of people to pull from. And 2, it's scalable. Right? You're not knocking door to door for sales. You're instead of having one person one-on-one conversation dialogue, you could be having 1,000 or 1,000,000 person dialogue with a virtual event, with this or with that. So there's a scalability of it. So 60% should be high level work, 40% should be your tactical. What do I have to learn in order to actually execute this stuff? And business owners, you don't have to do it yourself. Hire a virtual assistant, hire an admin, do whatever. I have a virtual assistant, $7 an hour out of the Philippines. Shout out to Z. She's amazing. Sweet, has a full family. Like, just think of a stay-at-home mom in the States who's just good at a digital job, but she's in the Philippines.
Shout out to Donna. I got the same deal going in the Philippines. So
there you go.
Yeah, one of the best employees I've ever had. So.
Yep. So
cool, man. I got to tell you, dude, I really enjoyed the talk. Like, I could geek out about this marketing stuff forever and talk about the implications and the social construct that we're coming up with right now with social media. So when this is all clear, we'll have to get together for a beer up in San Jose or something to talk. But maybe we could have you on in a month or two and talk about specifically your business and how you've done your lead generation, and like, regardless of what widget you're selling, we all got to sell something. Yeah. So maybe we could have you back on, man, for a longer conversation about specifically how Jose built his business.
Yeah. I'd love to. And honestly, the number one secret was business coaches, mentors, and it can come from many sources, books, right? Like Jim Collins, that's a mentor of mine. The fact that I spent, a month or two reading his book, I'm learning from the guy. But the paid coaches, I've seen a lot more quicker results on, because you both have skin in the game, right? They have your investment, so they have an obligation to you, and you made an investment, you have an obligation to yourself. But yeah, man, I love that. I'd love to come back. Love chatting with you, man. And yeah, I think we can definitely keep going into rabbit holes of things and really discussing it. But business owners out there, the only thing I'd leave you with is that just don't make this stuff too complicated. In Good to Great, there's an awesome story about Walgreens, how they did not execute e-commerce right away. There was a competitor, drugstore.com, that tried to take them out of business by doing that. They stuck to their core competencies. Within 5 years, they bought that competitor. They leveraged digital to do it, but they didn't go e-commerce. They actually ended up investing in satellite technology that will allow a customer from California to refill their prescription in Florida, because their number one goal in life as a business was to become the convenient drugstore for the nation. So they didn't go e-commerce. They went satellite technology that can allow them to fulfill that need of being the nation's local pharmacy. And another thing is that they had a clear definition on what their economic driver was, and that was profit per customer. Nothing else was distracting them. How can we get the most profit out of our customers? Making it convenient for them. So don't overcomplicate it. Understand what you're trying to do before you start tackling some digital stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks again for your time. I know it's super valuable. I appreciate you being in the Generate group. Hopefully there's some, mid-sized business owner in here that needs the digital architect, and this will create some great conversations for you. What's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Awesome. Yeah. So the website is Jayquiroz, Jayquiroz. You could also find me on LinkedIn, Jose Quiroz. If you type in Jose Quiroz Digital or Jose J. Quiroz, you'll most likely stumble on me. And then for my business owners out there, medium-sized businesses, any business owner that wants to get into the digital space, there's a podcast on iTunes, Where to Market Your Business Online podcast. That's hosted by me. So Where to Market Your Business Online podcast. And really the number one goal of that podcast was to try to provide non-confusing information to businesses who want to leverage the digital space. I'm not there. Obviously, I'm there promoting who I am and what I do and my case studies, etc. Let's put that on the table and let's be quite frank. But it's really about giving you advice that I would give to my prospects or to my clients behind closed doors. How to develop strategy, how to think about digital, how to start implementing it. I have an episode on there called How to Find the Right Online Marketing Strategy for Your Business. And it talks nothing about social media or e-commerce or email marketing. It talks all about the questions you need to be asking yourself as a business owner before you dig into the digital space. So that's Where to Market Your Business Online podcast. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on Google Podcasts, and I have it on the website as well. But check that out, and I hope you guys get some awesome information out of that.
Awesome, man. We just linked to everything down here in the comments. If you've watched this, if you got some value out of this, or you're watching the replay, because we're going to repost this a bunch of places, click the likey button, leave a comment for Jose. We appreciate you being on. And I'm going to convince you to rebrand everything Jose Q, because that just sounds like you're a character in a John Wick movie. So we'll talk to you in a couple months, man. We'll come back and do a follow-up.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. I'm looking forward to it.